open chain conjugated azomethynes and 1,3-dipoles leading to the synthesis of new heterocycle. Her research interest includes the nanocatalysis and organic synthesis, advanced materials, chemosensor for detection of hazardous compounds. She had guided 5 PhD students, 26 masters, including 2 MTech and 2 MPhil. She published more than 50 articles in peer-reviewed journal and few book chapters. She has successfully completed 6 external projects, and she was the HOD in chemistry January 2015 to January 2017. She is the now Associate Dean of Student Welfare from January 2020 to till date. She is the member of various institute committees like Faculty Security Committee, Campus Amenities, Event Cell, Culture Fest, Technical Fest, Purchase Committee, Flying Squad, NIRF, etc. So now I request to Dr. Jaspreet Rajput to present her presentation. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Dr. Atta, for introducing and inviting for this talk. So good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to share the PPT. So can I, Dr. Atta?
Yes, ma'am. Please, please.
Okay. I think it is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is visible.
Am I audible properly?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So the topic of today's presentation is sensors for the detection of the explosives. So if we go to the history of the explosive, it started in 19th century when the Chinese alchemists, they discovered the black powder. So which was a mixture of the saltpeter, potassium nitrate, sulfur, and the charcoal. So fuel was the charcoal and oxidizer was the saltpeter, potassium nitrate. So broadly, if you say what are the explosives, so these are the compounds, these are the chemical compounds that can undergo self-propagating decomposition, and due to this decomposition, it results in large amount of heat and a pressure at such a high speed that it causes lots of destruction to the surrounding. So what are the common characteristics of the explosives? So there are 4 basic characteristics before we move further. So first of all, these are the compounds which can be initiated or ignited by heat, shock, thermal effect, friction, etc. And moreover, upon ignition, they can either detonate or deflagrate. Under combustion, after the combustion, they produces heat and high pressure gases, and which produces a lots of destruction. And yes, after detonation, they can cause fragmentation, vibration, blast, and displacement of the objects. So there are 2 different classes of the explosive based upon their burn rate. One is called low explosive and the second one is called the high explosive. So the materials which detonate, where the velocity of the chemical reaction is faster than the speed of the sound, they are called detonating explosive or high explosives. And the materials where the speed is lesser than the speed of sound, subsonic speed, you can say, they are called low explosives or deflagrating explosives. So we have 2 different examples, low explosive and high explosives, like normal propellant, pyrotechnics which are used in the Diwali or other events for the lightning, producing sound and light effect, black powder. Similarly, for the high explosive, we have RTX, TNT, nitroglycerin, PET, and there are a number of others that we will discuss further. So our main focus is high explosives since they are quite dangerous. So based upon their sensitivity, the high explosives, they are of 2 kinds. The first one is the primary explosive and the second one is the secondary explosive. So primary explosives are those explosives which are extremely sensitive to the external stimulus, like friction, some heat, some electrical initiator. So after they can initiate the explosion. They are quite sensitive. So lead azide, mercury fulminate, lead azides. There are a number of other examples which can act as a primary explosive. So even silver fulminate, cuprous acetylide, lead picrate, they can also act as primary explosive. So next one is the secondary explosive. They are quite stable. So they are insensitive to the weak stimuli. They can usually require large input of the stronger shock to detonate. So for these type of materials, we need primary explosive or the detonators to initiate the explosion. So like TNT, RDX, they are the common one. There are a number of other also. So these are the secondary explosives. This is the broad classification of the explosives. So low and high pyrotechnics, propellants, they are low explosives, and high, they are primary and secondary, and secondary explosives as they are highly dangerous and they require some primary explosive or some detonators to work. So they can be of two different kinds. One is the military explosive and other one is for the industrial purposes. So these are the common military explosives. We have TNT, PETN, RDX, HMX, nitroglycerin, guanidine, nitroguanidine, nitrocellulose, TNT, dinitrotoluene. Then picric acid is also there, and the Semtex. We can have the mixture of different explosive also. Like Semtex is there. It is a mixture of RDX and PETN, ANFO, ammonium nitrate with the which contain fuel oil also. So there are different explosives, fluorates also, which can be used for the military purpose. So these are the other commonly used military explosives which have different compositions. They are not the single compound, they are a mixture of different compounds. You can see there are different types. So recently these homemade explosives, they are also in trend. So these homemade explosives, they have a high vapor pressure because of the presence of the volatile organic compounds like acetone or something like that. So these are easily synthesized, or these are in home or at domestic places. But yes, they can be easily detected because they have a high vapor pressure. Improvised explosives, these are also explosives which are otherwise non-explosive compounds, but these can be prepared to make explosive by just simple reactions, by blending for the terrorist activities, because the precursors are readily available and they are of low cost, right? So there are various precursors, potassium nitrate, KMnO4, ammonium nitrate, urea, which can be used for the synthesis of the improvised explosives. So this is the broad classification based upon the chemical composition of the explosives. We can see the explosive mixtures, and on the one side we have the pure individual single explosives. So if we are talking about the mixtures, we have the oxidizer and fuel explosive mixture, where one is the oxidizer, other one is the fuel, which oxidizer provides the oxygen to the fuel and helps in the rapid burning. So there are different compounds which act as a combination of the compounds which act as oxidizer and fuel. And second is we can have the binder also. For plastic, there are certain explosives which are called plastic explosives. So these plastic explosives are moldable, and these are used for the military purpose, for the terrorist activities. So in these type of explosives, there are certain binder or plasticizers are used. Apart from the other explosive, they can be organic or inorganic in nature. Right? So these contain a different double base, single base, or triple base. Then coming to the pure or individual explosives, we have inorganic origin and the organic origin explosives. So inorganic explosives, they can be metal-based, metal acetylenides, metal fulminates, azides, and the other salts of the nitro compounds. So they are the metal-based explosives. Then non-metal-based inorganic explosive like hydrazine derivatives, ammonium chlorate, ammonium nitrate, perchlorates. These are the non-metal inorganic explosives. And the most important are the organic explosives. They are the azo compounds, halogen amino compounds, azides, peroxides, and the mostly used explosive, you can say widely used explosives, they are the nitro explosives. So if you go into the detail, so these are the different nitro compounds which are used. Nitro, uh, this one is. So you can see these are nitroaromatics. They are the different class of the organic compounds which are widely used in the explosive. Similarly, nitroamines, RDX, HMX, these are also widely used for the explosions. These are highly energetic materials. We have the nitroesters like nitroglycerin, which was earlier discovered, and PETN. We have acid salts also, ammonium nitrate, urea nitrate, and ammonium picric acids, organic peroxides like TATP, triacetone triperoxides. So these are highly explosives. So these are the structures of the nitroaromatic compounds. You can see the TNT, TNP, tetrahalide compounds. So urea nitrate, TATP, these are the peroxide compounds. This is the HMX. And this one is the RDX, which are nitramine derivatives. So these are the other substituted nitro compounds which can have explosive nature. So the basic interaction when we want to discover that these explosive compounds, there can be the formation of the simple chemistry is there. There is a formation of the Meisen-Hammer complexes. You must have seen that these nitro compounds are highly deficient compounds. They are the acceptors. So there are interactions with the electron-rich compounds, and they form the Meisen-Hammer complexes. So this is the chemistry which is sometimes used in the sensing purpose also. So before going into the sensing details, first of all, that how these explosives are, dangerous to us apart from, terrorist activity and military purposes. These are the compounds which pollute the environment also. These are toxic in nature. So these can contaminate the environment apart from the real explosions, because sometimes during the ammunition production facility, there is a leaching of these explosives occur, or warehouse where the storage of these explosives is there, even where at those places also the leaching of these explosives can be there. The water disposal units of the industries or the ammunition plants, weapon firing range. So even after the explosion, also after killing the people or destruction of the infrastructure, there are lots of the after effects of these explosions are also there. Dust, debris, and lots of pollution and the gases will be there in the environment. So there, apart from these, there are all these contamination can lead to different type of the health hazards to the people. So, for example, the nitroaromatic compounds, they can rapidly penetrate through the skin, and it is being absorbed and convert the hemoglobin to methemoglobin. So this methemoglobin is the oxidized form of the hemoglobin, where iron 2 is converted into iron 3. So if there is an acute exposure or chronic exposure is there, it will ultimately lead to the anemia. So similarly, TNT is also there. TNT is also mutagenic. It can cause cancer, renal issues, muscular pain, leukocytosis. So even these type of chemicals, they are also dangerous to the aquatic life source. So TNT and RDX, they are also carcinogenic in nature. So perchlorates, they have adverse effect on the human health because they can interfere in the iodine uptake in the thyroid gland. As you know, the thyroid gland is responsible for the production of thyroid hormones. And this, if there is a interference in the iodine uptake, then the synthesis of T3, T4, the hormones, that will also be affected. Similarly, we have the nitroglycerin. So nitroglycerin can also lead to the health hazards, different kind of health hazards. We can have nausea, headaches, collapses, and other skin-related issues will be there. Similarly, trinitrophenol, which is also called the picric acid, which is also another kind of the explosive, which is commonly used in the pharma and dye industries also, apart from the explosive. So it can also leach into the environment through various methods. It can cause liver damage, leads to the gastritis, sinuses, and it is highly soluble in water. So that it is even more dangerous because it is soluble in water. So because most of the sensors, they have ability to sense these explosives in the organic medium. So the in aqueous medium, the detection of the TNP is the main issue. So next one is the physical constraints in the detection of the explosives. So if I'm talking about the constraint, why they are, yes?
Sorry for interruption. Madam, please, can you keep your video on, if possible?
Ah, okay. Wait.
It is the side bottom of share.
Video on करना. Wait a minute. Where is WebEx now? Okay.
Yes, yes, now it is fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. That's all. Yeah. So next one is the physical constraints in the detection of the explosive. So the foremost in the important constraint is the low vapor pressure at the room temperature. So they are difficult to explore. So for example, I have shown some of the equilibrium vapor pressure like TNT. It has the vapor pressure in part per billion is 13 at the 300 Kelvin. But yes, they have another thing that at elevated temperature, the vapor pressure is increased manifold. So you can compare the vapor pressure at the 300 Kelvin and at the 400 Kelvin. So for TNT, it is 13 and it is 400 Kelvin, it is 4.7 into 10 raised power 5 parts per billion. Similarly, if you can compare the RDX and PMT, so they have the high vapor pressure at 300 and the low vapor pressure at 300 and high at the 400. And second, because of the low vapor pressure, they have a limiting sample size. And yes, if they are used for the terrorist activities or explosives, as explosives, then they will be deliberately, the explosives will be concealed. So because of the concealment, further and the low vapor pressure, they are difficult to detect. And yes, interferences are always there. So there are certain compounds which can interfere in the detection of these explosives, and they result in the nuisance or the false alarms. And if you want to detect the explosive not through the vapor by the particulate method, then you need to swipe the sample. So for swiping the sample, you need a sample swab. And for that purpose, you need physical contact, and that physical contact could be dangerous because in that case, there will be, physical contact, and there can be some explosion because of that strike. So this is the vapor concentration of the explosives in saturated air at 25 degree. So you can see there are some explosives which have low vapor pressure and some explosives which are very, very low vapor pressure. So now coming to the methods for the detection of the explosive detection, we can have the animal olfactory, the canines, the bees, the mouse, rats can be used for that purpose. We have the fluorescence chemosensors. We have SCRC, surface enhanced Raman scattering, which is based upon the Raman principle. Then ion mobility spectrometer, the colorimetric detection is there. Then capillary electrophoresis, ion chromatography, then electrospray ionization mass spectroscopy, then XRD is also there. We can have other optical, biological, other mass and thermal sensor, and there are certain spectroscopic techniques also like UV and IR for the detection of the explosives. So all these techniques have the certain drawbacks. If we're going to the canines, the trained dogs. So those trained dogs sometimes they have a distraction, or their maintenance is very high. The cost of the training is very high, and they also suffer from some mood variation. So we cannot rely 100% on the trained dogs. So there are other bees are also there. There are certain some people working on the rats for using for sensing the explosives for in case of the mines explosives which are kept in the mines. But all these have certain disadvantages because the process is very lengthy. Some bees they cannot work at the night. Lengthy process is there. And as far as the instrumentation method they are concerned, they have certain other drawbacks. They have low response at the room temperature, time consuming is there. Large, sometimes in case of ion spectroscopy, we require large equipment, complicated instrumentation. Sample swipe, particulate matter is there, it may lead to the explosion. Sometimes acidification is also carried out. Sample acidification is used to enhance the signals by using certain kind of the acids. Thus, they can react with the explosives and they can help in the enhancement of the samples. But yes, they can also give you the false results. And this is also a pre-treatment, which is tedious and all that. And of course, health and the safety issues also there because in that case, the sensing is also very difficult and high cost. So these are the conventional techniques which are being used for the detection of the explosives. So now we are working on the chemosensors. So these chemosensors, they are low cost. They have better sensitivity and non-destructive operations. They have rapid response time. They are simple, portable, and sometimes you can easily view the change in color with your naked. So what is a chemosensor? So if you can see a chemosensor has certain binding side, which is called receptor side. So it can bind the analyte and results in the tunable molecular property. So this binding, after this binding of the analyte to the sensor, there is a signal production. The signal is viewed as a change in the color or some signal, electrical signal can be there, some fluorescent signal can be there. So that signal can be viewed through the chemosensors. So if you look at the chemosensing application, the chemosensors, they can be used for the formation of different type of the instrument also these days by using the image capturing technology, image processing technologies there. So changes in the color or the other optical properties of the sample of the analyte by different type of cameras, smartphones, or these scanners, the concentration of the different materials can be obtained. So for these are the certain type, even RGB sensors can be used, red, green, blue type of the where image processing can be used for the detection of these analytes. So in case of the chemosensors, we can have the receptor, and the second part is the transducer. So what is the receptor? Receptor, it is called recognition unit. So it binds with the target molecule, and this binding can be reversible or it can be irreversible. So this binding is selective, and after that, the next part is transducer. So this is the signaling unit. So it converts this binding event which occur between the analyte and the receptor into some measurable physical quantity. So that measurable physical quantity is called signal. So these chemosensors, they produce the signal after transducers. So these chemosensors, they can be of two types. First is the electronic chemosensor, second is the optical chemosensor. So in case of the electronic chemosensor, we have voltammetric chemosensor where we measure changes in the redox potential. The signal is in the form of the redox potential. And second one is the ampermetric chemosensor. Here we measure the impedance, change in the impedance of the cells. In case of the optical chemosensor, we have two different methods. We have a chromogenic where we have a change in color. We measure some changes in the color, and fluorescent chemosensor where we study the changes in the behavior, fluorescent behavior of the compound. So now coming to the fluorescence, what is the fluorescence? Fluorescence is an emission spectroscopy. Fluorescence spectroscopy is an emission spectroscopy where the emission of the light is occurred from the substance by the absorption of the light or other electromagnetic radiation. And fluorophores, they are the chemical compounds which re-emit the light which is being absorbed. So this is the Jablonski diagram, which I think most of you people are familiar, because fluorescence, which is a rapid phenomena. So there is no pause. Once you remove the source of the light, it will stop, but fluorescence is the little bit lasting phenomena. So we are talking about the fluorescence-based chemosensor right now only. So what are the advantages of the fluorescence-based chemosensor? So they are low in cost. They have better selectivity and effectability, and very small instrumentation is required. Sometimes we can use the paper or we can use the naked eye for the detection. So the fluorescence can occur, we can sense the different analytes through three different phenomena in the fluorescence. First is called fluorescence quenching, which is widely used. So you can see here, it is called on-off sensor, on-off sensing also. So first we have a fluorescence. After interacting with the analyte, the fluorescence, it will reduce or disappear. So it will lead to turn off. So this is turn off sensor. Second is where we have fluorescence enhancement. So you can see the analytes, they interact with the material compound, and then it will lead to the fluorescent turn on behavior. And this is called, third one is the emission spectrum modification. So here turn on type of the fluorescent sensor is there. You can see the color, the fluorescent intensity color, it can change, but it is turn on. It is a little modification of the fluorescence. So what are the materials, the properties of the materials which should be there for a compound to be fluorescent? So here you can see the material should have, they can interact with the fluorophore, and result after interacting with the fluorophore, there should be some mechanism of the fluorescence. And fluorescence can be change in the fluorescence intensity. It can be change in the wavelength, anisotropy, can be any change in the lifetime, fluorescence lifetime related to the concentration of. So what are the different kind of the fluorescent molecules? They should have some particular characteristics to be fluorescent to act as a fluorophores. So they should have lowest energy absorption, that is pi to pi star. They can have or n to pi star transition. There are certain heterocyclic compounds. They can fuse to the aromatic ring and they can show the fluorescent behavior. So there are two different type of the groups, electron donating and electron withdrawing groups. So electron donating groups, they can enhance the fluorescence. By electron withdrawing groups, they can reduce the fluorescence. Similarly, if there are conjugated double bonds are there, they can also, that type of compounds, they can also show the fluorescence. So these are certain examples. There are squaramines, porphyrines, xanthines, phthalocyanine. So these type of, there are different type of the heterocycles also, which show the fluorophore phenomenon. So if we are talking about the mechanism which is responsible for the fluorescence quenching, so there are broadly four different kinds of the mechanism. No doubt there are other also which can enhance this one. The photo-induced electron transfer, which is called PET phenomena, resonance energy transfer, Foster resonance energy transfer, which is also called FRET phenomena, electron exchange or Dexter exchange, and the intramolecular charge transfer, which is called the ICT phenomenon. So now look at the molecular orbital scheme for the different kind of the interactions. If I'm talking about the first one, this is the PET phenomena. So here in this case, the electron which is present in the LUMO, it can transfer to the nitro. We are talking here about the nitroaromatic compounds. So they can transfer to the nitroaromatic compounds, and this will result into the PT, photoelectron induced transfer of the electron from the LUMO of the fluorophore to the nitroaromatic compound. Second one is the resonance energy transfer. So here the excited molecule, it can come back to the ground state, and then resonance of the energy occur with the nitroaromatic compound and the excitation of the electron which is present in the nitroaromatics. So this phenomena is called the FRET mechanism. Third one is the electron exchange. So here the electron is exchanged from the donor to the acceptor, from the fluorophore to the nitroaromatic compounds. So as nitroaromatic compounds, they are electron deficient, they act as the acceptor. So donor to acceptor, the electron from LUMO, it is transferred from donor to acceptor, and from the HOMO, it is from the acceptor to the LUMO. So this will also lead to the excited nitroaromatic compounds. So these are the different mechanism. So apart from this, this fluorescence quenching process can also occur with the electron deficient compounds as well as electron rich compounds. So they can interact in both the ways. So what are the different parameters that can be measured by fluorescence phenomena? We can measure the fluorescence intensity, the anisotropy, lifetime, emission excitation spectra, the fluorescence decay, the quantum E. So all these different parameters which can be measured for the fluorescence sensing. So what are the different types of the sensors, chemosensor materials which are used for chemosensing, fluorescence-based chemosensing? So we have different types. We have nanosheets, we can have nano aggregates, we can have conjugated polymers, we can have quantum dots, carbon dots, and metal organic frameworks. So these are different compounds which are used for the fluorescence-based chemosensing. So there are certain examples that we will discuss in detail further. The organic conjugated polymers. We have different types: PPE, PPV, polyfluorines, carbazoles, polyesterenes, polythiophene. These are organic conjugated polymers. We can have inorganic conjugated polymers: polysilanes, metalones, silafurines. So our focus is on the organic molecules for the fluorescent sensing. So normally small organic molecules, they have a disadvantage, like they can be soluble only in the organic medium. To detect their presence in aqueous medium is a little bit difficult. So to detect the explosives, if you want to detect the explosive in the aqueous medium, for that purpose, we need to make this compound in the fluorescent in the aqueous medium also. So for this purpose, our research group has used the reprecipitation technique for the synthesis of the organic nanoparticles. So these organic nanoparticles can be made by using this technique. So in this case, we dissolve the organic compound in particular organic solvent like DMSO or DMF, in which we have got the maximum fluorescence. And then after that, it can be dropped into the aqueous medium, and during the addition, it was further sonicated. And after the sonication, the reprecipitation occur and the organic nanoparticles are obtained, which are dispersed in the aqueous medium. So these organic nanoparticles have been synthesized from the triaryl imidazole TAI derivatives. So these derivatives have been synthesized by single one-pot synthesis. So we have synthesized 3 different compounds, S1, S2, S3. So it doesn't require tedious workup. It takes good in, and the synthesis was one pot under rapid. So they can give you the fluorescent organic nanoparticles. So these triaryl they show on-off fluorescent chemosensing for the detection of the TNP, trinitrophenol. So you can see thus the limit of detection is over here. S1, it is 0.738 parts per million. For the sample 2, it is 0.684 parts per million, and for sample 3, it is 0.686 parts per million. So the optical properties, you can get Lambda citation over here. So this is the optical property of S3 sample in different type of the solvents. So it showed maximum fluorescence in the DMSO. So this is the fluorescence quenching titration in the organic medium DMSO. You can see. Now this particular case, this triamidazole, they show static quenching. So if we see the Stern-Walmer plot, you can see they show linear behavior at the low concentration. So apart from that, lifetime studies, they also show that this KSV is constant, and that is why it shows the static quenching, not the dynamic quenching. So this is the quenching values constant at with the 90% at first DMSO medium. So it has 90% water and 10% DMSO. So you can see that it shows the linear behavior, the plots. So this is the detection limit. This is again the detection limit for the detection of the TNP in 90% aqueous and DMSO medium. So it shows very low, good detection limit in parts per million. And this is the selectivity studies. So the other nitro compounds, they have been compared, like we have trinitrophenol. So all the samples, they can show that, yes, they show different sensitivity for the compounds. But yes, the trinitrophenol, they show that this the sensing for trinitrophenol was the highest. So the real sample analysis was also by spike tap water, drinking water, or distilled water, and the real sample they also show the good results. So in these compound we have the PET phenomena. So by finding out the HOMO-LUMO of this by CV, by cyclic voltammetry, we have find out that the quenching have the PET photo-induced electron transfer phenomena. You can see the energies of the S1, S2, S3. These are the HOMO and the LUMO, and this is for the TNP. So we have also synthesized test strips of the prepared organic compound and use this for the sensing of the TNP at different concentration. You see different concentration results over here. For S1, A is for S1, B is for S2, and C is for S3. Similarly, there are another class of the compounds which are called polyhydroxyquinoline dilutators. So these compounds have been synthesized in our lab by the one-pot reaction, three-component reaction, a four-component reaction. And it's a solvent-free reaction which gives the polyhydroxyquinoline derivative. You can see it shows a better sensitivity for detection of the TNP, 0.151 parts per million as compared to the previous one. So again, fluorescence quenching, you can see over here, the Stern-Walmer plot is there, which show linear behavior at low concentrations. So all these compounds, this is the, again, PET mechanism. So these are the another compounds, organic conjugated polymer based fluorescent sensors. So these are the polymer, organic polymer in nature, and they show fluorescence behavior. And the important thing is there, they show molecular wire effect. So what is the molecular wire effect? So if the analyte, or we can say the quencher, it combined with one of the part of their polymer, it will lead to the quenching of whole of the molecule. So it's a one-point contact and multi-point response. So for other smaller molecules, you have the single molecule quenching, but in conjugated, it will lead to the molecular wire effect. So there are different type of the organic conjugated polymers reported. So you can see we have PPE, polyphenylene ethylene, PPV, polyphenylene vinyl, polyfluorine, polycarbazole, polyacetylene, polythiophene, polysilane, polymethyl, polysulfone. So all these polymers, these are also called conjugated polymers. So they have wide band gaps. They have a broader range for the explosive detection. So the detection of the explosive is through the fluorescence quenching by the electron transfer from the electron-rich nitroaromatic compounds to the your conjugated polymer. So this is the PP. So normally the PP compounds they have a disadvantage because they have they are not sterically very much isolated. So because of the bulky or they can lead to the self-quenching. To avoid this self-quenching, the Swagger and the group, they introduce ipticene units. They introduce the ipticene units into the polymer structures, and because of this ipticene, they give a bulky and the rigid structure. So now this self-quenching phenomena will not be occurring, and this will lead to the better fluorescence properties. You can see this is a pent-ipticene derived PP structure. So this is a conjugated polymer backbone is there, and these ipticene units are arranged in these conjugated polymer backbones, and this lead to the porous structure as well as so that the analyte can bind in a better way, and this can helps in the detection of the TNT vapors. So now these are the another polymers, PP based polymers, which are reported by Swagger group. So you can see we have the different 1, 2, 3, 4 molecules. So these particular PP molecule have better properties as compared to the previous one. So here you can see the third one also is there where we have the chiral aggregates. So it also increase the TNT vapor sensing as compared to one. And yes, in case of the fourth group, we have dialkoxyphenyl rings attached. So these dialkoxyphenyl rings are attached. So these are attached on the wings of the ipticene. right? So they show better or higher quenching sensitivity toward the dinitrotoluene in the chloroform. So introduction of these dialkoxyphenyl ring in the tryptocene rings, so it also increases the quenching sensitivity. Similarly, the pyrene based, so the PP derivatives which have the pyrene unit in within their backbones, so they form the new type of the polymers, conjugated polymers, which helps in the better sensitivity for TNT over the other nitroaromatic compounds. So these type of the sensing performance, you can see, this type of the sensing performance is because of the special interactions between the LUMO energies of the TNT and the pyrene groups, which are present as a copolymer in the backbone for PP. So this is the strong fluorescence, weak fluorescence. So it means it is there, pi stacking interactions are there, and this is a term of sensor, which is PPE based. Next one is TP. TP is tetraphenylethylene based polymer. So these polymers have extra unit. So this helps in discrimination of the TNT and the picric acid. So how they are able to differentiate? For, you can see P1, sample P1. So in P1, compound P1, we have both acceptor as well as donor species. So we have donor receptor architect in the same compound. So these compounds can result in the it will interact with the TNT only, not with the picric acid. So why it will not interact with the picric acid? Because in this particular sample polymer P1, so where we have benzothiazole in the backbone. So here in this case, there will be repulsion between the acceptor and the negative charge present at the TNP. So the negative charge TNP, it will result in electrostatic repulsion, and therefore it will not detect the picric acid. Whereas if you look at the P2 and the P3, so they are donor only molecules. So they will not show repulsion for these picric acid molecules. They will interact with this picric acid. Next one is the PPV molecules, polyphenylene vinylene molecules. So again, like PP molecules, these also have a problem with the aggregation-induced quenching. So in the condensed state. So in these cases also, the modification of the backbone of these PPV molecules can result into the different fluorescence phenomena. So here we can see this is tris phenylene vinylene. So where it can you can see this is the backbone have this tris phenylene structure which is extra attached. This is the backbone, and this extra tris phenylene group is introduced in the TPV, and this can form an interlinked structure. And this interlinking polymer will have a better space porous structure which can interact with the PLP. So you can see it shows the better quenching efficiency in the even the films obtained from the this TP molecules. They show better efficiency for the RDX molecules. So even this group, Ditchell group, they also study the growth rate of the films for the quenching efficiency of the TP films. 24-hour growth, they show better detection relative quenching. You can see some more than approximately 75% after 72 hours of growth, and at 24 hour it was 10%. So next class of the polymers, they are the oligotriphenylenes. So these are the oligotriphenyl compounds. So they also result in the rapid and the amplified quenching, fluorescence quenching. So here you can see the donor receptors, they forming pi electron of the charge transfer complex between these oligotrypsine molecule and these quenchers. So these quenchers are there and they form a molecular wire effect. You can see they can form a molecular wire effect or this spiral architect. There is a spiral architect which leads to molecular wire effect also. So next organic compounds are there. We have aggregation induced emission is there. So normally the polymer fluorophores, they exhibit low emission in the dissolved state. But when we change the solvent, then they show aggregation phenomena, and in different solvent they show the aggregation phenomena, and because of the aggregation the free rotational and the vibrational motions will not be there after the aggregation and the energy will not be dissipated. So this will enable radiative decay of the emission. So here you can see aggregation and induced emission in hyperbranched polysilane phenylene compounds. So these are silicon-based compounds. These are hyperbranched polysilane phenylene, HB hyper-based polysilane phenylene compounds. So these are used for the detection of the picric acid. So they show aggregation phenomena. After the aggregation, you can have the better binding with the TNP. So this is and this is also called the super amplification effect. So this is the aggregation induced hyperbranched HBPSP for the detection of picric acid. So here it is in the plain water, THF. Here it is in the water. So in the water, it is 1:9 THF in the water. So in the THF, it was completely soluble. So it was not having the better performance. But yes, in case when the nano aggregation is occurring in presence of 9 parts water, 1 part THF, it show better quenching performance. Next one is the pi conjugated push-pull system for the detection of the explosion. So there are certain organic fluorophores which have certain push-pull type of phenomena. So in these pi conjugated molecules, they have the donors as well as the acceptors in the same molecules. So the donor pi acceptor, they provide the interaction between the donor system and the acceptor system. So it will lead to intramolecular charge transfer mechanism. So in this way, we can also detect the nitroaromatic compounds which are electron deficient and they can bind to electron rich fluorophores. So these are the pyrene based fluorescence sensor. This one. So here you can have pyridine as a substituent. They show fluorescence quenching by aggregation induced phenomena. Here you can see the quenching is for the picric acid. So out of the other, this is a selective, so better diffraction limit. Next one is the imidazole moiety. When imidazole moiety is attached over here, you can see this is our imidazole moiety. So this is the linker. The pi linker is imidazole, and then in previous case there was no linker over here. So we have so now this group Jacob, they have introduced the pyridine system and intermediate pi linker is added over here. Imidazole group is attached over here and they show extended pi conjugation, and that is why they show high quenching response and better selectivity for the picric acid out of the various type of the nitroaromatic compounds. Next one is the pyridine end. So this is the pyridine and PPV molecule. So this basic structure is the PPV and this is the pyridine capped. So this is the acceptor pi donor pi acceptor system. So this is the another push-pull system where we have a acceptor pi donor pi and acceptor type. So here two pyridyl groups are there. So rapid fluorescence quenching is again there, ICT phenomena, for the detection of TNP and the DNP, and there is no interference reported for the other nitroaromatic compounds. Next one is the divinyl pyridine substituted anthracene derivative. So here you can see this is another one. We have the this one is the donor acceptor. This is the again pi molecule, and this one is the acceptor. So this is again showing push-pull mechanism. So alkyl chains at 9 and 10 position of the anthracene core, which is there, and as per the DFT calculation of the crystal structure of this compound, they show high sensitivity toward the picric acid because of the combined effect of the PET and the ICT phenomena. So this is also showing this is picric acid in water, picric acid in THF. So aggregation is also there in water. Picric acid is detected in the aqueous medium, so aggregation is also there. So next one is the X-shaped push-pull system. Now these are the another compounds. Here you can see yes, we can have a dihydropyrrole. So here we have tetraphenylethylene and pyridine units at the paraffins. So these compounds, they also show aggregation-induced phenomena. And when the water fraction was 99%, it shows 60-fold enhancement than in pure DMS. So there was no another nitroaromatic interference, and real water sampling is also there. It also detect the picric acid in the real water sample using the test strips coated with this X-shaped organic molecule. So next one is another compound which is terpyridine derivative. So we can have this donor pi and A3 push-pull system. A3 acceptor. There are 3 acceptors in this molecule. So donor pi A3 system. So you can have a different substituted donor is there. So these compounds are also showing the turn-off sensing properties. These can be visualized by the naked eye. The sensing is by PET phenomena, photo-induced electron transfer, for the detection of the nitroaromatic compounds. And yes, it can also detect the picric acid. You can see it can also detect the picric acid. Next is the 1,3-diazine based sensors. So here we have a diazine. 1,3-diazine based sensor is there. So the core is 1,3-diazine, and it is also there is also triazole derivative annulated pyrimidine also. They also show very good detection limit. You can see 0.025 to 0.44 micromolar. In DMF, it is 0.025 micromolar, whereas in water it was 0.44 micromolar. So for the detection of the picric acid. So again, it is by the PET phenomena, photoelectron transfer phenomena, by combination of the because of the pi conjugated system. Next is the 1,4-diazine based sensors. We have time, Dr. Ma'am,
you have another 10 to 15 minutes. So last 15 minutes we keep for question answer.
So how much time is right now?
So now it is 3:30. So you can continue another 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, I have half an hour, no?
Yes, but 15 minutes for question answer, ma'am.
Right. So next is 1,4-diazine based sensor. So in 1,4-diazine based sensor, we have the pyrazine and quinoxylene. This is the pyrazine and other one is being with the quinoxylene derivative. So these can be protonated and it can be utilized in the detection of the picric acid. So these compounds also have a push-pull mechanism like the previous one. So, but these are better, they show better emission as compared to 1,3-diazine, which I have discussed in the previous slide. So these are also turn-off sensors, show quenching in the presence of the nitroaromatic compounds. It shows the better sensing for the nitrobenzene, but it also shows sensing for DNT and TNT also. But the best performance was with the nitrobenzene. Next one is the triazine based sensor. So here this push-pull system is a triazine ring based system. These show this is a donor receptor type star shaped molecule. You can see we have the 3 rings attached over here. So again, in these kind of the molecules, we have the intramolecular charge transfer properties, and they show they show excellent sensing properties for the picric acid as compared to the other nitroaromatic compounds. These are the another triazine based sensors. So as compared to the previous one, you can see in this case, we have different substituents. If you look at these compounds, they have 2 of the aromatic substituents. They have been replaced with the aliphatic groups over here, this one. So these are the aliphatic groups over here. So they change this replacement of the aromatic with the aliphatic. They show change in the selectivity and sensitivity for the nitroaromatic compounds. If you look at the this sensing probe B, it show turn on behavior for the detection of the RDX, whereas the fluorescence is reduced in the presence of the TNT. Whereas in particular, as compared to D, it show the sensing performance for the RDX in the acetonitrile. So these compounds, they also show this particular case, they show better sensing performance with the RDX. So why it happens? Because in these molecules, the RDX is by the reaction, it leads to decomposition and it forms the formaldehyde. So this formaldehyde can interact with the primary or the secondary amino groups. So these primary and the secondary amino groups, they form the amine or the aminium compounds. So these amine and aminium compounds, they lower the energy by formation of these amine compounds. The energy of the nitrogen atom, the lone pair on this is lowered, and therefore PET quenching is occurring. So it becomes less efficient. So that is why they can be easily used for detection. Next one is the porous organic compounds. So here we have this is a porous organic compound which is having a triazine moiety, pyrimidine moiety, tetraphenylethylene moiety. So this is the porous compound having a push-pull mechanism also, and it show excellent performance for the detection of the nitrobenzene with better selectivity and very low detection limit, 1.6 nanomole. So all these, there is lots of research, going on in the detection of the nitro-explosive compounds, and there is, for the conjugated polymers, organic conjugated polymers, and various organic compounds, there is lots of scope to work on, because these are not very much explored as compared to the different other sensing materials. So by adjusting the groups, by studying the effect of different substituents, by different donor receptors, we can have a lots of studies in the detection of the nitro-explosive through the fluorescent spectroscopy by using the organic compounds. Thank you. Yes, Doctor.
Thank you, Professor Kaur. So Dr. Kaur has covered the various types of sensors for detection of explosive, including trinitrophenol or maybe TDX, another nitroaromatic also. So hope this information will help to develop the other kind of the night explosive sensors. So, if participants, if you have any query, please ask. But ma'am, I have one small query.
Yeah.
Suppose any sensor that can suppose detect the picric acid, but
Yes.
in presence of the that means excess other nitroaromatics. So suppose one sensor that is able to detect the picric acid selectively, but in the most of review articles I have seen that they have used the they have done the interference experiments by same
Yeah.
equivalent of the other nitroaromatics.
Hmm.
So in some cases, suppose if we use the excess of the other interference nitroaromatics, then what should be the effect for that cases, and how we can minimize that one?
See, the interference of the other compound, if there is a art, suppose if we have the picric acid is there and the other nitroaromatic compound is also there. So the main important part of the sensor is it should be selective. If it is not selective for the other compounds, then then there is no point
Useful,
of the
yeah.
sensing. Right. So mostly the sensors, sometimes there are certain sensors, they can show interaction with the other explosives also, but it also depend upon their LUMO, lowest unoccupied molecular orbital energies. So from that you can find out that the selectivity and their mechanistic parameters.
Okay, thank you, madam. So if you have any query, please ask.
Hello, madam.
Please,
Yes.
please carry on.
Hello, madam.
Yes, please.
My name is Biman De, madam. I am doing my working in NIT Arunachal Pradesh. I have one query, madam. That
Yes.
all the sensors, madam, that we are seeing that all are very high sensitive towards tinitrophenol, right? But
Yes.
why not is not sensitive to other nitro compounds?
See,
Why?
it is, the sensor which you are developing, you just, are you doing PhD or working?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm doing PhD, ma'am.
Yeah. So, see, I have told you there are different mechanism for the fluorescence quenching. If you are working on turn on or turn off sensor, I think you are working on turn off sensor, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So the quenching, it also depends upon the mechanism which is being followed by your sensor, and moreover the homo-LUMO interactions, or sorry, the LUMO interaction of your sensor. If there is a PET phenomena, then LUMO of your sensor and the LUMO of your analyte. So if it matches with the DNP, so definitely it will show better sensing with the DNP only, not with the other one.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And regarding, ma'am, apart from this means aromatic nitro compound, if there is any aliphatic nitro compound, then the sensor will detect the aliphatic nitro compound also.
Basically, these aromatic compounds are deficient, electron deficient, because these trinitro groups are there and they have a conjugated effect. But yes, they can detect the aliphatic nitro compounds, but then you have to make a trial for the sensing. आपको try करना पड़ेगा.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
So anyone, please. I think, ma'am, they have no questions. So thank you, madam, for accepting our invitation and
Thank
for
you,
a nice lecture.
it's a nice to meet you.
Thank
I
you.
think you
Thank
are
you.
also working on fluorescent compounds. So
Yeah. Actually, I am working basically on sugar base
yes, okay.
to
So
increase the water solubility. Yeah, that is
like
organic.
carbohydrate based, you can say that. Okay.
Please, any question, please? No, ma'am. I think they have no questions. Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I can leave.
Yes,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
I have one question.
Ma'am, please, ma'am, please.
Okay,
Hello.
please.
Please,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yeah, yes. Ma'am, can you list the applications where this kind of this explosive sensors? This is what is the range of these sensors actually available nowadays?
I am not getting the question, please. Can you please repeat?
Actually, the title is the sensors for the detection of explosives. No.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, the sensors, what you have explained, is it available with the what ranges? The sensitivity ranges. Can you tell me?
See, I have told in one of my slide that you can have these are the fluorescent sensors, and you can make the device. For that, you need to do the interdisciplinary research. For the chemist, they can combine with the engineer, the electronics person, or the other some coding computer person. So for the image, we can have a chromogenic. These are the colorimetric kind of sensors. So you can detect the color, you can see the color. But if you can further, use the camera processing or image processing techniques, and after applying the software, you can through the color change, you can find out the concentration of any analyte. So similarly, RGB sensors are also there. Because we chemists usually what we do, we synthesize some chemical and we forget it. Even I'm an organic chemist. Sometimes earlier we used to synthesize an organic compound and never study their other properties. But now we try to study their fluorescent properties always when we synthesize organic compounds. So these compounds first synthesize, and after their application can be carried out only when you use the technology.
Ma'am, also we can use this one also paper-based sensor. So that one directly we can use also.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for exact concentration, you need some software techniques and.
Yes.
But yes, optically they can detect by visual detection.
So this is actually the different from something like accelerometer sensor, which is used for the vibrations, and some other sensors, the electronic sensors. Is it, ma'am? Am I correct?
These are the optical sensors. Optical means
Optical sensors.
in chemical based sensor, optical chemistry, you can say, not the optical sensor which are electronic based.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. But you can make. This is the application for that part is the application.
No, for most of the cases, actually, we are purchasing from the market, actually, sensors. It's a single axis, 3-axis sensors. And then we are using it our purpose, actually. I try to know that what kind of sensor is this. That's it now.
Hello, am I audible, madam?
Yeah.
Yes.
Am
Yes.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, right. Just I am having a little query actually. In case of detecting any explosive, so what should be the minimum distance to to sense something explosive is present in our vicinity or not, like that? Like these are the dangerous things, no? So if there are any means
See,
to detect the presence of the explosive
yes,
from distance.
actually, these explosives, we are not having access to the RDX or the TNT. For these kind of the explosives, we have to contact some DRDO labs which are working on the explosives. And, this is not a very large amount. These are in the traces we can have in the nanograms we use for the detection only. So for that small amount, I think there is not such a problem. But yes, we are not getting access. Even I am not having TNT or RDX. We are trying on the picric acid, which is also analog and readily available.
Okay, madam. Okay, thank you.
So there is a C4. If you search the C4 explosive, it has a RDX, one of the components. So there are certain people that they can use a small amount of that for the as a drug also. It create a high effect. I was reading something about explosive, and I found that some person was overdosed with C4. Inhaling or touching is something different. He ingested it. So,
Okay, madam. Thank
so
you.
very small
can-
amount, it's not a thing. Okay,
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
okay. Thank you, thank you.
So,
Okay.
thank you, ma'am. So our next lecture will start at 4 p.m. So name of the speaker is Professor Raja Kumar K, IIT Kharagpur. So he will give talk on the design and simple molecules and materials for sensing application, emphasis on sensing in leaf cells and gases in environment. So it will start at 4 p.m. Okay.